Liverpool have been absolutely put to the sword after the last 24 hours, and losing 3-0 away at City, you would often say is justification that you could do that. But at risk of sounding like a broken record, at risk of people saying, oh, you're being too positive, you're being too negative, whatever, I want to talk a little bit about the reality of losing 3-0 away to City, and not the reactionary takes, and equally the takes which are underplaying Liverpool's issues, which are flying around right now. And I think a lot of people, there's very few people who can analyze this, and I include myself in that list, at any great depth, right? There are plenty of people, I'm sure, at Liverpool Football Club, literally sorting through the numbers right now, trying to find where the strengths and the weaknesses of the side are, looking at the shape of the team, looking at the people they have immediately available, fitness levels, all those kind of things, and saying, how can we get to the next stage of the way this team want to play by the time that we come out the international break? And I don't think it's going to be international break and suddenly Liverpool start a new shape. But I certainly think that when people are talking about the responsibility that Arne has, the responsibility that the players have, everyone's trying to do this toxic thing of who's more responsible? Is it 50% Arne Slot? Is it 50% the players? Well, the players, mate, they've got to step up. Well, you know, it's difficult when there's new players coming into the team. There are so many tropes flying around about Liverpool right now. I want to talk about the way that I feel about the team and then disagree with some other people on the way that they feel about the team. So first of all, I want to talk about how I feel. In Anfield, against Real Madrid, there was broadly an anticipation of a result. Not, you know, us thrashing them, but broadly you knew that the players had to step up. And that the feeling around Anfield was that we had players in the team who have the capability of stepping up, and that Slot can beat people in the Champions League. And I think all of those things correlated on the night, along with, I think, Real Madrid not being particularly good. Alongside Villa having a dip going into their game. Fair enough, right? And I think we all knew as Liverpool fans that going into the City game was a real litmus test for us as to where we actually are. But we know that no matter the result, we're going to have the more accurate representation of where we feel the team are at, rather than, you know, some people just basically throwing theories out there and filling airtime, right? Those are two different exercises. And whilst I respect people who can go out there and get a wage and get a job and do all of this, like, oh, I've got to take, I don't think there's one reason why Liverpool are particularly bad right now. I don't think it all goes down to just one thing. And I think the people who are going, is it 50% Slot? Is it 80%? The responsibility's got to sit on the manager. The players have got to step up, mate. The players have got to step up. Well, why aren't the players stepping up? Salah's not been at it. But then they go and say, well, I think Ekitike's been great for Liverpool in the early part of this season. Ekitike scored some goals. But I think broadly, we are still struggling for someone to hook up that front line. Not that Luis Diaz, by the way, was particularly incredible at it. I've said this in my video last night. Anyway, the points continue that actually, when you have non-penalty XG, Liverpool were very equal to what Man City did. Now, that might not feel representative of where the game stood. And again, I think one stat and over-relying on it is bad. But broadly, and I mean very broadly, let me just read this out because I actually got this morning and I just want to make sure that I do it correctly. Liverpool's non-penalty XG was 1.4. Man City's non-penalty XG was 0.9. Obviously, the actual XG, including a penalty, was 1.67 to Liverpool's 1.4. Now, that's a fairly conservative game. And actually, what it strikes me as is that City have beaten us on a day similar to the day that we beat Real Madrid, and we caught them cold. We caught them not particularly feeling confident, not particularly knowing where some of their, you know, strengths were, and basically, again, in transition between two eras. I think that's fair enough. But when people start saying things like, well, you've lost 7 in 10, we've lost 40% of the games since arbitrary date. And actually, by the way, most managers' win rates are something like between 60 and 70%. I know Pep Guardiola's is much higher than that, you know. In fact, I think Pep Guardiola's is something like 71%, something like that. He won 714 games out of the 1,000 games that he's now played with Man City, or something. It was along those lines, right? Don't quote me on that. But it's a very close number to that, which is still much further ahead of where Arne Slot is, I guess. Well, actually, would he be much further? Anyway, the point goes that you can throw out all of these arbitrary stats. We were outplayed by Man City. And I don't think XG is particularly representative of a game, but I think that the complete shift the other way and saying Liverpool look awful is also not representative of where the club are broadly going. It's where they are at in terms of Man City. It's where they played in terms of Man City. And boy, I don't think a lot of it, I think some of those players had awful games. Konate, awful game. McAllister sort of looked a little bit lost in that midfield and looked like he was doing the biting tackles, but wasn't broadly keeping up with the match. The game bypassed our midfield quite a lot in this game. And again, I think broadly, when I'm looking at a lot of these teams, I'm seeing the frustration comes for me that one department doesn't work because there's like a mini ecosystem of passing within that, and everything else begins to fall apart. Ekitike just looked on his own. Salah just looked on his own. Florian Wirtz looked like he was floating between the front line and the middle, and it just didn't work. For me, Florian Wirtz needs to be much more like a Modric-type character for us. Drop a little bit deeper, let Szoboszlai or McAllister go ahead and be that 10, in inverted commas, and run the tempo of the game a lot more than being involved in that in the exact final third. He needs to be entering the final third from much deeper. And a lot of people are saying, well, he's not able to influence the game, blah, blah, blah. I think we need to adapt the shape of our midfield. And at the moment, that would leave him in more of a Modric type, maybe Iniesta type runner of the game, maybe Xavi. We're going somewhere between, he's more of an 8 in this Liverpool side than he is a 10. And I'd be interested to see him in that shape, by the way. That's much more of a midfield 4, though, or even a midfield 5. And for me, him drifting in off the left feels like a temporary solution to a long-term problem. And that mirrors the fact that Salah, to me, feels at this point like a temporary solution to a long-term plan. And I know, there are rumours going around at the moment that Liverpool are in for Semenyo, we're in for Bastoni, we're in for all these different people. Both those players, to me, indicate a massive shift in where Liverpool are going to play. And I think that come next summer, I think we already know that Mo Salah is going to be leaving. And I think that in January, Liverpool are going to start showing interest in people again. We know that it was a blow not to get Mark Guéhi, but we also know that Konate had a terrible game yesterday. So these caveats that we keep giving are all justified. And yes, Liverpool lost to City. I think that's broadly something that most Liverpool fans can kind of reckon with and accept, right? But what I won't then kind of accept in just all these different chats that we're having is that Liverpool look like it's over. Not the league, but just as if, well, Arne Slot can't get a handle on this. They looked very confident against Madrid. And maybe they were allowed some of that, but that confidence was not all Madrid giving them the ball, Liverpool cancelling out a lot of what Madrid did. And I'll add this. Erling Haaland was kept to his lowest XG and his lowest chance creation in any game for over a year now. It's a stat of along those lines, right? Again, does the actual stat matter? No. But does the sentiment of that stat matter? Yes. But no one's talking about that. Everyone's going, Erling Haaland got the better of this back line. Well, Erling Haaland didn't score a goal. Konate scored a goal. Nico Gonzalez, very good player, by the way. I've got a lot of time for him. I've worked with him, not for him, with him on a shoot, and he was a lovely guy. And on top of that, I also think, seems like a fantastic player. Scored a goal that rebounded off Van Dijk's foot. And then the Doku goal, Doku had, I think, an all-timer against us. And you can't really, in my opinion, legislate for that kind of thing. So when we're looking at how Liverpool conceded their goals, but also our chance creation, I'm kind of reticent to say it. I think we've been unfortunate in some of the games that we've played. But you play your way into luck. You play your way, the more in control you are, the more likely you are to have the ball in the opposition half, and the more likely you are to be creating a chance. But right now, kicking the ball out wide to Salah, kicking the ball out wide to Wirtz or to Kerkez is not working. And I think whilst we've got this idea that we want to play slightly more narrow, which we definitely have, we are not yet currently fully committed to that. And there are times where Salah is taking up positions where, yes, he is wide and yes, he is available, but is he going to be effective from that position? And I think that's kind of my point here is I'm not saying that I think Salah is a terrible player. I think he is currently ineffective in this Liverpool system. I'm definitely not saying I think Florian Wirtz is an ineffective player. I actually think Florian Wirtz is a very effective player. But he's not being played in an effective position right now. And we've been pushing this for quite some time on this channel now. Liverpool need to change shape and are in the process of changing shape and changing personnel within that shape. And saying, well, yeah, we just fit these players within the shape. We know that happened on the Klopp and it didn't work, where we changed shape, where we changed approach, where we changed whatever you want to call it. And it took a little while. We know it's just happened on the City. Really, broadly, I think Mikel Arteta has fitted players into the same shape for Arsenal and adjusted positions. We've seen him kind of adjusting where people enter, but we know it's still a 4-3-3 for Arsenal. We're not looking to go for a back three, a midfield five and a two, which drastically changes everyone else's roles. And they're coming to kind of the fruition of all of their work now, and good for them on that. I think I'm a big fan of Mikel Arteta and Arsenal's work. I wouldn't want our team to play that way, but I see why Mikel Arteta is a top-class manager, and I see why the club ethos is so good, and why the players want to play for that. I also see that a lot of people are making conclusions of a whole season based on a third of this season. And as Pep Guardiola said, as Slot has said, as everyone has said, you cannot judge in one game what you're going to do for the rest of the year. And I think Slot's frustration and his patience with this team has been admirable. His patience in starting Salah, probably because he knows he has to start someone like Mo, has been good to me. I think that's been smart. He's played the political game well. But I really want to see where this team goes without him. And I think the African Cup of Nations will be our time for that. I think AFCON, we will get our time to see Liverpool post Mo Salah. But that's kind of why I think we hear these noises in the media of, oh, well, Salah might want to go. Salah might want to leave. He might want to jet off somewhere. I think that's fine. I don't really have a problem. It's not as if we're begging him to stay for another 5 years. We know that he's got to transition out. We know he's got to go somewhere else. We know he's got to continue his career. And we know that he won't finish his career at Liverpool because there is a payday elsewhere. Frankly, I think also football is moving in a direction where Salah will be effective once in 5 games, maybe 4 games, maybe even every couple of games, depending on who you play. But I don't think he's a long-term solution for Liverpool anymore in this shape, compromising Isak, Ekitike, even Gakpo on the opposite wing because of the knock-on it has, Bradley on the outside of him and all these kind of things. My point is, I think, yeah, Liverpool have been unlucky, but you make your own luck. And we cannot continue to just ride on with Salah and everyone else and go, but they're world class. I've heard enough of the posturing and but they're amazing, world class. It's not the way it works. It just isn't. And I'd love to know what you guys think. So let me know in the comments below. Let me know what you're thinking. Join us on the Discord. Join us in the membership if you're down there. And there is a Patreon where we get a better split of what it is that we do. So let us know what you guys are thinking in the comments below. And I will see you guys on all 3 of those platforms. Much love.